Steve, so let's dive in like the last group, huh?
Yeah.
Couple same thing because it seemed to go quite well. Um, just just a short kind of reminder, redirect, guys. And this is from listening to nightly voice texts. Kind of do a gut check with your 24 plan, and we can talk about any questions on your plan before we go to some other things here. When I say gut check, I mean look at what your goals are and is your schedule supporting that, just so you're managing your expectations in your time together. Um, couple, maybe two or three people, I had to ask the question: are we lowering the goal or increasing the time because you're not getting the metrics in that you need to get in? So let's just make sure we manage that. That's all. That makes sense.
Yeah, I added to this on the last call too, just about this being, more specific with your goals, because I did see a pattern of people who had, I'm going to make this many dials, I'm going to have this many, takens by this date, and you got to get a lot more specific than that. And when I say that, I'm referring to not only just the metrics for, how many dials you're going to make for the week, what that equals to over a month, same thing with leads over a week, and what that's going to be equal to all for the month, and just appointments, just get very specific. Same thing with ICP. People do obviously personal growth goals, whether it's working out, eating more healthy. If that's the case, now get specific on what you are going to do that's measurable, that shows that you're successful when you're eating more healthy, when you're working out. Are you getting a membership? Are you going to work how many days a week? Which days a week? Like, if when you get more specific, these goals become a lot more realistic, and you can apply that same method to whatever it is that's you're actually writing down for your business plan. And also, it's important too. What I've always done with my business plan is I wrote down all of my goals first and didn't look at the quarters or when I'm going to insert them. All right. So then I write down a whole like brain dump list of here's my goals for 2024. Then I started kind of grouping them into which ones are more pertaining to, something that should be going right now, quarter one, and then making sure they're in organization of what I'm going to like bang out one at a time. So the organization of it is very important, but just start by getting it all down first and then seeing which ones group together.
Yeah, we tend to, or what we see is we all tend to try to heavily front load the first trimester or first month or first quarter, and it's just not realistic.
Mhm.
So, does anyone need help completing theirs or have questions on theirs before we just kind of get off the business plan thing? Anything at all?
I need to get mine done. I started with the 10-year and I backed up, as you know, Chris, because I had submitted some stuff to you. And then I just need to get it down so that I have what next year is. So I've been
Yeah,
trying to work backwards.
no, that's good because you and Adam and Rick watched that 2 day chairman's thing, and I know that helped you align. So it is going to be more work, but it'll be very specific when you're done.
Yeah.
Soon as you have something, get it over to Steve and I. But also, I know we have a chairman's meeting coming up, so any help you need, let us know.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions or anything that they need help on their plans?
I was going to make a comment that when you say more specific, so to back out, do you want to go to dials and lives and appointments and taken
Yeah,
versus,
so that you can go as specific as you want when it comes to like your metrics. You obviously guys are doing this on a daily basis, and then you have your numbers at the end of the week. My opinion is there's nothing negative that's going to come from you being ultra specific. It's just when you just kind of throw these things out there, I don't know, and you don't get this emotional connection to these goals, and it's easier for you to kind of drift in comparison to you're laying out a blueprint of what it is you're looking to accomplish in 2023, but then you're breaking down these individual goals, which then is, in my opinion, is easier to stay on track, and it's easier to visually see if it's measurable or not, or if I'm on track based on this plan that I've really like intentionally planned out.
And John Hoopengarner, I know you had a type. I answered that in Slack. John's, I don't know if you guys can see his question in chat. But also, it's a great opportunity for you, and Nick's on here coincidentally. It's a great opportunity for all of us if we're not hitting the 72 to 100% sold of our takens. There's always a reason, right? And with John's, we found a bunch of AOs. Those are going to be heavily weighted on maybe doesn't go, and condos, double whammy. So the answer is I've always used 72%. If you're more comfortable with 55 or 60, use it until you have more of a metric. I know you also reached out to Mike at my suggestion, and that seemed to help too. And just so everyone knows, I said, you want to improve and sell 100% of your properties, call Rick and call Mike, because that's what they've done. Like, just go to someone in the community that's what they've done. There's always a reason your number's off. So first and foremost, you brought it up. Secondly, you took action on, okay, how can I fix that? So I'd use whatever number you're comfortable with there. Anyone else on the business plan side of things before we tweak? Everybody else is good on that front?
Doesn't have to be perfect, guys. We'll help you continue to up level it until everybody's clear.
Yeah, because you want to be running with that tracking wise by the last week of December for sure. If not like next week, right? Because I'd be operating on that plan now. And then what? Go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say I should probably just let them know, because I'm gonna do this after this call. I'm gonna be posting. I'm gonna just go look up in Slack, but I'm gonna post a business plan that you guys, if I haven't already sent it to you and DM'd one to you for use as an example, I'm gonna post one in the High Six channel just so you guys can use as well. If you just don't know where to start, you can see one that was finished from last year.
And you guys, here's what we told the last group: don't look at those plans and go, I have to mimic exactly what Rick did or exactly what Steve did or whoever, because everybody's brain works differently. Rick is similar to me in that metrics work for him. That's how I am. But others like to write things out or have chat, whatever works for you. Steal ideas from the plans that works for you. That makes sense? Because then you'll be into it. If not, you're just doing it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Nick, did you have a different answer on that? Or are you in agreement with that buyer comment? Just until you have exact numbers, keep tweaking, right?
Yeah, keep tweaking. And also when you're starting out, and this happened to us when we were starting out, it was probably closer to the 50 or 60% because we were taking more AOs and more properties that we would have difficulty selling. So don't beat yourself up over that you're not at 70% or you're not at 80%. Just you have to use your metrics, but especially when you're new starting out, you're not going to be selling 100% of these, and don't worry about that.
And use a rolling average, you guys. Nick just reminded me of something. Not just us, but so many High Six would start out like, God, I remember Brian was like 40-something%. And then within 6 or 8 months of doing a rolling average, like every month he'd roll forward for the 6 months, you get up to in the 80s really fast. His next two taken. So just be aware of it. Rick, you are 100% too, right? You and Mike.
Yeah, no, I'm not 100% because I had one AO that was a taken that didn't go.
Okay. So that's pretty close.
Other than that, I am.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
That brings up a question that John Hoopengartner posed to me was AOs and not selling them. Why is that any different than a lease purchase? Because I mean, it is the same thing. It's just.
Yeah, but it's not. The agreement's not. The agreement's very weak. It's permission to market. And so historically, people can and will back out, the sellers. Number one. Number two, a lot of times with the AO, I always tell you guys, and I always did it, Nick and I and Zach, just whatever they want, even if it's slightly out of range, because it's their deal. Right? So sometimes it would be a little bit loosey-goosey on that. So there's those three reasons is why the numbers aren't the same.
Okay, thank you.
It is rare, not impossible, rare for someone to back out of a sandwich or a owner financing, especially when it's not contingent upon a buyer, but even when it's contingent upon a buyer. It's rare.
You've had it, Deb. What comes to mind is that the most recent deal with Enhancement, they gave us another rehab that they did in Fall River, like 30 or 40 minutes from us. And we had a buyer, met with the buyer, brought him through the process, told Enhancement that, okay, great, we're ready to accept them. And then they pulled the rug off from under us and said that we decided to accept the cash offer. So AOs,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is a rehabber, you guys, that some of you have met. They've been sending us business since like 15. Just they went with the better option. They can. No binding there. What are you going to do? Chase an AO? There's nothing to bind it, really. So, Rick, long answer, but did that help?
Yeah, that it does help. It just for some reason doesn't make sense why they would back out more often on an AO than anything else. Why the buyer would?
Oh, not the buyer, the seller.
Oh, it's the seller. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. No, the buyers, it's a bummer, like Nick said, because he had that buyer, for example. No, it hasn't been the buyers. We had an AO where, and this goes way back too, Nick, you might remember this one. I had a buyer ready, signed, ready to go. And the wife calls, this was like in 15 or 16, and says, I mean, the mom calls and says, well, my son was really part of this ownership of this house, and he had to sign off on it, and he's in Puerto Rico, and he said, no, he doesn't want to do it anymore. We had a buyer meeting done. Crazy. Luckily, we had another house for her. So AO is just, it's everybody sees the immediate cash, but to Rick's point, they behave like a sandwich. If you can get the sandwich, you only use an AO as a back off, right? Hey, Cal.
Thank you for letting me join.
Of course.
You bet. So good question. And then anything else in the business plans? Are we okay in business plans before we do a pivot? Good for now? Okay, keep getting them to
Chris, you
Steve
said
and I.
use rolling average. What's a rolling average?
Let's say Rick looks back 6 months right now, 12 months, his last 12 months, and his first 3 out of 5 deals he didn't sell. Now he did, but let's just say he didn't sell them, or he didn't sell them. His average is going to look pretty shitty. But then if his next 2, if every month he rolls forward 1 month, so he's doing a 12-month look back every month, and his next 2 takers he sold right away, that's going to improve his average dramatically, instead of leaving those outliers in there. As you go over time, if you use a rolling average, looking back 12 months each month, your numbers can and should stair step and improve. And Nick and I and Sue would do that with leads, with take-ins, with everything, to see if we were improving. If we weren't, why? Does that help, Morgan?
Yeah, so you just kind of drop off the
Latest.
furthest back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Okay, so on the business plan front, we seem good. On the second week of the month, you guys, we're going to do live calls. In your case, the second Tuesday of the month. On the first Tuesday, then, what Steve and I are going to do is just make sure we're talking about your numbers from the last month. So let's say January, whatever the first Tuesday is. We're going to talk about December's metrics, and then how does that shape up to your business plan? Are we ahead or behind? And of course, you're only in January with that example, but that's what we want to look at, because no different than we do. We call it a dashboard meeting. We do it with our core leadership group as a company, and we look at all the metrics that we said we were going to do, and we say, are we behind or ahead? How can we make it better? How can we tweak? So we'll do that with you guys on the first call each month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just as a heads up. Okay, the other 2 things Steve and I did, and that doesn't matter what order we go in, is live calls you guys are doing. You should be making note of your challenges during the week. Like, I wish I handled that better, or I screwed that up, or how could I have done that better? And bring that to this call in the mastermind too. But this is a little bit more intimate, so you can get more answers. Bring those to this call. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, any appointments you have or are going to have, like we can dive into Adams in a second. We want to hear about those and rip those apart. We did one for John Bristol and one for who, Steve?
Corolla.
Corolla. Both super productive. Both had like nuggets in there that we could help on and others could learn from.
Mm-hmm. And 2,
So,
I figured to throw this in there just because I know there's a bunch of people on this call that are role playing. So, and I might have said this to you guys last week or another group, but to keep your role playing fresh, right? You don't just have to do initial and follow-up calls as what you're role playing. If you want to work on the skill set of your appointments and designing deals and stuff like that, you guys can do that and should do that. As well as if you guys say are role playing at the beginning of the week, take a look at last week, start writing down when you had a really difficult call or you had somebody that completely threw you off. That would be a note that I would take down of what threw you off and why, and then maybe use that as an opportunity in your role play to try to go through that same thing again now after reflecting on it with drilling that one thing so that you get comfortable with it. So the role play shouldn't just be showing up just to make a call for 15 minutes and in reverse. It's let's get very specific on what you're working on that maybe tripped you up last week.
That's similar to, I think I did a rant a while ago on if you have one thing you're trying to improve on, similar to what Steve's saying, pluck that out and just drill it over and over.
For sure.
Okay.
I found that helpful. I have taken, like, if I had a challenging seller, then when I'm role playing, I'll be that seller and
Yeah.
see how the other person responds. And is there anything different that they did that I should have done
Good.
and
Yep.
stuff? And I found that it's helpful to see how somebody else handles it.
No, that's
That's
good.
perfect. That's exactly right. The other thing you guys can do is you can record, should do is, in addition to your call critiques that you send us, which we still should be getting more, like 2 a week from everyone. But in addition to those, you can record a role play session and send it over. And it's for two things. One, are we maximizing the role play for only 15 minutes that we have? And two, can we help you with some scripts that we're hearing? So it's like a double whammy. Josh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Just on the critique of appointments, since I'm going on one this afternoon, what sort of thing should you be like keeping track of to bring to what went well, what didn't go well?
Okay,
Steve,
so
I was gonna say you handle this because you do a lot of this at the office visits.
okay, so obviously, I know this isn't exactly what you said, but just make sure you have the your original property information lead sheet that you had filled up in the past, your property walkthrough sheet. That's basically a script while you're walking through and just looking at the home. And then from there, I guess what you'll probably be reflecting on the most is sitting down and just getting clarity and confirmation on the specifics of hypothetically if you worked with them. Right. And that's the designing the deal part. You know, if it's a lease purchase, is what's their mortgage statement, what's owed, what's their monthly payment, what's the longest amount of time they'll go to achieve this equity piece. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm thinking along with you. And Josh, the way you said that, if I'm tracking with you, it's not necessarily you going, oh, on an appointment, this should have been better. Because you might not know yet. I think that's where you were going. It was more when John and Carola brought their appointment, they just told us about it. And we said, well, did you try that? Did you try that? Did you make sure this person was there? You know what I mean? So it was just, here's what I did. And we pick it apart like it's a live appointment. That was more the critique, right? In addition to what Steve said for the prep.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then another part, like give you kind of an example, is John booked the appointment and the time, but he didn't know until he basically got there that the seller went and booked numerous people, very tight windows, to basically do like a FSBO open house, which he didn't know that. He probably wouldn't have wasted his time going out if he knew it was that. And I said, basically what you could do maybe to get ahead of it next time is let them know when you do book the appointment that you only need about 20-30 minutes of their time. And if they booked all these windows super close, the seller would have told John that, well, I don't have 30 minutes. I have people coming in 10-minute increments or something like that. So he would have had a better idea to have booked a later appointment when he had her attention. So just like being specific would be helpful. But these are like these little things, right? You just bring your experience of the appointment, and I'm sure we can find some learning lessons of things that we can do differently so that we're either more prepared or our sellers have the right expectation of what's going to happen on the appointment.
And Josh, you have yours today, so you could bring that we can go over that. But I know I've been helping you with it. So you could bring, hey, here's how it went to the Thursday mastermind if you're on it. And if not, to this call Tuesday.